Okay, so here our instructions are to simplify, and the first thing I notice is that we're dividing. I'm dividing fractions, so I'm going to rewrite this as 4y squared, right, minus 9 over, and this is the first fraction will stay the same, right, but I'm just going to take the reciprocal of the second and multiply. And I'm going to avoid that sign. Actually, I shouldn't write x for multiplication. So maybe just put a dot. Here we have y squared plus, right, 5y minus 6 over 2y squared plus y minus 3. Now, I'm not going to try and distribute and multiply all this stuff. I'm going to try to factor each term, each quadratic, excuse me, here and here, and then here and here, and hopefully those terms will start to cancel out. So here we have 4y squared minus 9. That's the difference of two squares, right? A squared minus b squared. And we don't have to, again, memorize this formula, but when you have a squared minus b squared, how do we get that? Like if we factor it out, what happens? Well, that's going to be a minus b, right, times what? Well, a plus b. You can work that out. It's a squared plus ab minus ab, and then minus b squared. That's what we have right here. That might help you when you're factoring. Here, right, a is 2y, because 2y, if we square that, it's 4y squared, and b is 3, right? So here a is equal to 2y, and b is equal to 3. So if we factor this one out, we get 2y, right, minus 3 times 2y plus 3. You can test it out, right? 2y times 2y is 4y squared plus 6y minus 6y minus 9, and that works. So then we move on, and here, I'll go to this one next, right? We have y squared plus 5y minus 6. So here we're looking for factors of negative 6 that add up to positive 5. So what I think of right away is that if you have negative 6, that's equal to 6 times negative 1. And if we add 6 plus negative 1, we get 5, right? So those are the two factors I'll use in this one. And I'm just going to write one big factor string. After all, we are just multiplying anyway. So I have what? I have y plus 6 times y minus 1. And if we distribute this here, it would work out, right? Y squared minus y plus 6y, that's plus 5y minus 6. So far we've factored these two terms up here. Now don't let these coefficients of 2 here throw you off in the denominator, right? We can work with those. Let's factor this one first. So we have 2y squared plus y minus 3. Well, again, we're looking at factors of negative 3 that add up to 1, right? So negative 3, I think of the factors right away. Oh, okay, if we have 3 times 1, 1 times 3, negative 1 times 3, and so forth, what's going to happen? Well, if I have 3 times negative 1, that equals negative 3. And if we add 3 plus negative 1, we get 2. Okay, well, maybe this is not going to work, but remember this 2 right here. That means we're going to end up doubling one of the factors of negative 3 when we distribute, right? When we set these parentheses up, we know we're going to have a 2y and a y here. So if I distribute this 2 later on, it's going to double whatever factor goes right here. So really, we're looking at the factors. You can think of this as factors of negative 6 because we're doubling one of the factors of 3, which means that new factor list is really the same as the factor list for negative 6. But we don't have to even get into that because here we can say, oh, which of the factors could we double, right, and then add them to get what we want. We want to get positive 1. Well, I know right away that if I was to double negative 1, that would become negative 2. And now, of course, 3 times negative 2 is negative 6, so we're looking at factors of negative 6 now, but if we add these two, we get positive 1. So these are the two factors I want to use, and I said I want to double this one, the negative 1. So that number is going to go here, negative 1, which is the one I want to double, and then positive 3, which goes here. Right? So really that was the two factors we're looking at as negative 2 and 3, because now I'll show you 2y times y is 2y squared. 2y times negative 1, that doubles negative 1 to give us negative 2y, or negative 2. That's what you're looking at over here. 3 times y plus 3y. So here's where we add the negative 2 and 3 to get positive 1, and then we finish with negative 3. So this is 2y squared plus y minus 3, which is what we want anyway. So here we have those two factors, 2y plus 3, and here's our first cancellation, y minus 1. Boom, boom, cancels out, and of course these cancel out, right? 2y plus 3 and 2y plus 3. Even though they're in different spots, we could rearrange them so they're right on top of each other, and then they would cancel out. Now we have one left to go. I'll write it up here. 2y squared plus 9y minus 18. So again, we're going to set these brackets up. And I'll put 2y and y. Now, I want to look at factors of negative 18 that add up to 9. So what are our choices? Well, we could have 9 times negative 2 or 9 times positive 2. But you might realize right away that that can't help us get to positive 9. So I'll focus more on, let's say, negative 6 and negative 3. Well, negative 6 and positive 3, excuse me. And let's say positive 6 and negative 3. Well, here, what happens? If we double one of these two, what will happen? Well, here we get 12, right, plus negative 3. We're only doubling one of them. Here we get negative 12 plus 3. So this would give us negative 9, which we don't want, but this one gives us positive 9. So this is the one I'm going to use, and I'm doubling the 6 to make this happen. So I put my positive 6 here and my negative 3 there, and I'm done. But I'm going to check it. Right? There's no need to memorize how this works, but you can figure out as you go. 2y times y is 2y squared. 2y times 6 equals 12y. Negative 3y, right? Negative 3 times y, and negative 18. Here we get 2y squared plus 9y minus 18. And that's exactly what we needed to get. So now, if I pull this down here, we get our last two factors, 2y minus 3 over y plus 6. And isn't that cool? These cancel out, and so do these. These simplify to the number 1. And we're done. Alright, hope that helped.